Hi everyone, welcome to J&D Gardens. Today we're going to talk about uppotting. There could be a lot of different stages to uppotting, from the starter cells to finally planting in the ground. Now we obviously can't show you all of them, but we're going to show you how we uppot a few of our favorites. So here we have Celosias and marigolds. Now we like to go from cells to the 2.5-inch pots because they're easy to work with, and we find that it gives the plant close to 2 months before we have to go to the next pot, depending on the plant, of course. Also, they fit nice and evenly in a standard 10 by 20 tray. We'll show you that in a minute. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with taking our pots that are already filled about 3/4 of the way with our homemade potting mix. And we're going to take our handy dandy scoop. We're going to put some in. And what I like to do to get the plants out of the cells is I just use a plain old garden staple. It has a nice rounded edge to it, and it seems to dig into the cells quite easily, and it doesn't hurt the roots of the plant. So that's why I choose that. I've tried many different ways, and that seems to be the best way. So we're going to dig this celosia out. And when we know that we're going to uppot, we actually dry out the plants a little bit. We hold back on the water the day before, because when you're getting them out of these cells, it's much easier when they're not all wet and hard to grab onto. The staple actually holds on to the bottom of it, and it pulls it right out with absolutely no problem. And if you can tell, this is a long root structure. That's how long the cells are. And they took very nicely. So it's going to be a little deep. So that's why we only fill up the pots around 3/4 of the way with soil. And what we do is we put some more of our soil in. You bounce it around a little bit, make sure that it gets evenly distributed. And then you push down on it a little bit, make sure that it's going to have a nice sturdy base to it. And then you top it off with our soil again. Bounce it around a little bit. You can push down a little bit more on it. The water that you're going to give it is going to actually push it down automatically, but we can help it along. And so we're going to do the same thing with our marigolds. Just push that in, pull it up with the staple. And this one actually has a really nice root structure. If you can see that, look at that root. It definitely needed to be uppotted. Actually, all of these do. So we're going to put this in 3/4 of the way. We actually could have went a little less because it's such a deep root structure that it didn't need that much soil, but that's okay. So we're going to top it off with our soil again. Evenly distribution is key. And we're going to push it down. Make sure that this grows up nice and sturdy. Push it down a little bit. And top it off a little bit. Bounce it around. And now you have a celosia and a marigold uppotted. And it's that easy. So after you moved all your cells to the 2.5-inch pots, you'll have something like this. See how nice and organized they fit? Now, another reason why we like to use the 2.5-inch pots is because you can arrange them from smallest to largest and take out the ones that just didn't make it. Now, obviously, these all made it because they look fantastic. But if we did have one that died, we could actually just take it out and replace it with another one. Or you can take a small one, replace it with a big one, because the sun may be hitting the one next to it and it would be beneficial to actually move it so that the sun hits all of them equally. Now you can buy the tray pot combos, but the thing that we don't like about them is that they become specific to holding just those pots. Whereas if you use a standard 10 by 20 tray, you can use it for starter cells, 2.5 inch pots, or whatever. So let's move on to our next plant. So here we have a few different tomatoes. We have a Black Krim and we have a Delicious. Now obviously they're both outgrowing their 2.5 inch pot. So we're going to move them into a 6 inch pot. Over here, we already packed these two 6 inch pots with a little bit of soil, and we're going to actually take the Delicious tomato, we're going to take it out of the pot by squeezing the pot a little bit and carefully pulling out the plant. And the root structure looks fantastic, but it definitely needed to be up potted. Now this is a little wet, and what we usually do if we know we're going to up pot is we hold back on the water a little bit so that you're not dealing with the wet soil like this. So what you do is you put it into the pot on top of that soil that you already put in, and you put some more soil on top of it and mix it around so that it gets evenly distributed. Keep moving it around, and then make sure you push it down a little bit because you want the plant to grow up with a sturdy base to it. So push it down, and then you can always top it off with some more soil, which is what we're going to do. So top it off, move it around, and most importantly, don't forget to put your label back in. Okay, now we're going to take the Black Krim, pack it down, and if you want to straighten it out, you can straighten it out. This is the time to do it because it's going to grow up that way. And then put some more soil on top, top it off, a little bit more on the other side. And if you want, you can pack it down again, but when you water it, it's going to get packed down anyway naturally. And yeah, I think these are going to grow up really nicely. So let's move on to our next plant. Now sunflowers are a plant that everyone loves to grow, but a problem you could have if you start indoors is that they can grow very quickly. You could have a 9-foot plant in a matter of a couple of months. So obviously, up potting can be a big challenge. Now we still love growing our Titans and our American Giants, but if you really don't have the space for those, then we recommend going with a dwarf sunflower like these. These particular sunflowers that we grow are dwarf sunspots. So let's take a look at them.
They grow to about 2 to 3 feet tall, and the heads can get to about 10 inches in diameter, and they make great container plants. The beauty of growing dwarves is that you get all the benefits of a bigger sunflower in a smaller package, and you don't have to up pot as much. But there are exceptions.
Perfect example. All these sunflowers have been in these 6-inch pots for close to 2 months, and they all look healthy. See, the trunks are nice and thick. And no root bound. So it's nice and healthy. But just to show you how Mother Nature can throw you a curveball, can you believe that all of these were planted at the same time? This one kind of got away from us because it was in the back of dozens of them, and we just didn't notice how big it was getting. This one obviously needs to be up potted. See, it's a nice healthy plant, has a nice sturdy and thick stem, and the leaves are nice and big, and it's even getting ready to bud. Now it has a little root bound, but that's okay because we caught it quick enough. And if you have that, all you do is you just loosen up the roots before you plant it. It doesn't harm the plant at all. Now normally we would go from a 6-inch pot to a 1-gallon pot, but since this one's growing so fast, we're going to skip that and go right to its final pot, which is the 2-gallon. For this, we're actually going to use a grow bag. For those who aren't familiar with them, we love them. They're flexible, they can store away easy, they have 2 handles, they drain well, and the plants love them. Now, we have a grow bag that we already filled with 1/4 of the way of soil. For our produce, we usually grow organically, but for our flowers, when we're putting them in their final pot or in the ground, we like to add an all-purpose plant food. In this case, we're using Miracle-Gro Shake and Feed, but there are others out there. For a plant this size, we use about 1/4 of the scoop. But just read the directions on the package for your container size, and you'll be okay. So, I'm going to put that in there, pack it down a little bit, put some soil in, mix it around a bit, put some more in there. Make sure you put the label back. So there you go, a happy and healthy sunflower. Now let's move on to our next plant. So there's been a lot of up-potting so far, huh? And the thing about up-potting is that you can never tell how much you'll have to do. And as you've seen, there are a lot of factors involved. Another example, here's one of our tomato plants. Now granted, we started them earlier than most people, but they still have some time to grow before spring. So this 1-gallon pot just isn't cutting it. And hopefully this 2-gallon pot will be big enough until we can get it in the garden. So this is a mortgage lifter. And what we're going to do is be very careful with how we take this out of the pot. This one you might actually want to squeeze from the bottom. And it's going to get messy. This one's really going to get messy. Now we already filled this pot with soil about 1/4 of the way. So that wasn't too bad. And the soil is a little wet, so it makes it a little bit more difficult, but that's okay. It helps the plant. And what we did to support the plant is we put a bamboo stick in it. And then we keep it upright by clipping it. Now you can put 1 clip or you can put 2 clips. It depends on how tall the plant's getting. We can actually use 2 clips with this one because, like I said before, this is a tall plant. So it's now protected in 2 spots to grow upright against the bamboo stick. So what we're going to do is actually put the stick in a little bit further because it's more soil now. And we're going to top it off with some of our homegrown mix. And we're going to distribute it all throughout the top layer of it. Pack it down a little bit. Push it down. Make sure it's straight. It'll find its way if you don't put it straight, but I just try to do that. Makes everything easier in the end. And top it off a little bit more with some more soil. And I think that's good. You can pack it down a little bit more, or you can just leave it loose. It's up to you. Put the label in. Don't forget the label. And because this is going to grow nice and tall, and it's going to have a thicker stem to it, we're going to put this tag on it. So we're going to tag it on the bottom. And don't forget that if it has some lower branches or suckers on it, you can just take those off. You could cut those off, or you can pinch them off. So there you have it. Now let's take this to the greenhouse. So how are the babies doing?
I think they're doing great, but it's amazing how quick you can run out of room when you keep up potting.
You got that right. Now we just need Jack Frost to go away so we can get these in the ground. Well, we hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. And leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, remember, yes we canna.